Now then, of course, it's time for me to give you my extended 3-hour presentation on transhumanism. Yes, I am joking. And I better make that clear before Sid himself comes up here and throws me off of this stage. All right, that's funny, what I want to talk to you about. And you're going to have to make your ears hear me fast, because to cover this amount of material, there might be times when I talk a little bit fast, which is kind of a bad habit that I have anyway. But I do want to talk to you about something now that is not so funny. I want to talk to you about the coming technological singularity. There's a phrase. I want to talk to you about transhumanism. I want to talk to you most specifically about the coming human enhancement revolution, because, ladies and gentlemen, unknown to probably most people in the traditional churches today, there is a war that is coming, and it's worse than the Terminator movies. Literally around the world today, there are people who are dedicated. Now, we're talking about from executive levels of governments on down. We're talking about national leaders, military leaders, academia, some of the world's most famous philosophers, and they are committed to what can only be thought of as fulfilling the next step in human evolution. I am talking about transhumanism. Somebody said I should clarify what transhumanism is. In a nutshell, transhumanism is the idea that we now hold it within our grasp to permanently alter, and in their mind, for the betterment, the human race. We are going to brain-machine interface ourselves with strong artificial intelligence systems that may even allow us to communicate with God, they think, in ways that we can't do right now just through the Holy Spirit and the Christian belief in redemption. We are going to, at the germline genetic level, we are going to permanently undo DNA in humans as it has been understood, and we are going to create a superior model. We are going to use genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, synthetic biology, neuropharmacology, and a whole lot of other stuff that ends with the phrase ology. We are going to use those now to create what Hitler could have only dreamed of in his schemes around the Aryan super race. What Nietzsche, the German philosopher, could have only imagined in his writings about the Übermenschen, the superhuman of tomorrow. And what you need to know first is this dream is no longer considered to be fringe. From national laboratories on down, U.S. budgets this year, last year, the year before, there is a blueprint being devised. Your tax dollars are flowing in. In fact, I spoke not long ago at the Ohio Science and Supernatural. You like that? Science and Supernatural, a blending of the two, which is, of course, a transhumanist theme. I spoke at that conference, and I went to Ohio fully convinced that the average Ohioan was unaware of how right there in their state in recent years, the Case Western Reserve Law School had been the recipient of $773,000 from the NIH. The NIH is the largest department of its kind in the U.S. that gives your tax dollars for this kind of research. But why did they give Case Western Reserve Law School nearly $1 million? It was so this character somewhere right here, Professor Maxwell Melman, the lead bioethicist at Case Western Reserve Law School, could lead a team of law professors, that's very important, scientists, bioethicists, other interested and qualified parties, for one purpose, really. First of all, to do this. For those of you that can't read that, I'll read it for you. It says a 2-year project to develop standards for tests on human subjects in research that involves the use of genetic technologies to enhance normal individuals, to make them smarter, to make them stronger. And notice this little eugenic caveat, to make them better looking. You like it? So, better looking in whose opinion, right? Now it smacks of eugenics, an improved human in whose opinion? Who's the person that gets to create the model by which all the rest of us have to be judged? But the other part of this article, if you Google this, you can still get it online, read the whole article. The other part of it was more interesting to me because the other part of it talks about how we also are going to have to begin developing the guidelines. That's part of what this grant was for. develop the guidelines that will be used for setting public policy, that is, the law. And how will the law need to be amended in order to extend constitutional and Bill of Rights privileges to human non-humans, which I mentioned earlier. These are humans who have been sufficiently genetically altered so as to no longer be considered to be human at all. I will be using the word chimera, and what that basically is referring to, it's from Greek mythology. It is the mixing of one kind of an animal with another kind of an animal, and sometimes an animal with a human. And so all we are really talking about are human-animal hybrids. So if I slip and use the term chimera, that's what I'm talking about. I mentioned during the program the Brookings Institute. They're doing the same thing right now, writing the Future of the Constitution series, and they're even, go there, by the way, when you go home, look up the Brookings Institute on Google, click on it, go there and read the Future of the Constitution series, especially articles number 9 and 10, because those were the ones I referred to earlier, where they literally talk about near-future gay Gattacas, genetically engineered homosexual communities. Well, in any case, the 24-month period came and went. And I had been waiting with bated breath to find out in what way Professor Maxwell Mellman and his team of law professors had actually used human subjects for establishing tests to genetically modify mankind as a part of the next step in evolution. Well, so far, no report has been made public. Now, a report had to be filed because that was part of the contingency of the grant that was given to them. So far, the public is hidden. But there is kind of a tell here, because from the day that they finished this 24-month period, Professor Maxwell Mellman began traveling the United States of America, where he now is going to our universities and our halls of education, and he is giving 2 specific lectures. Both of these lectures are on transhumanism and the future of democracy. And they literally outlay a plan in which, by the way, do this too. Go to Google and type in Maxwell Mellman and his lectures, because you can go to Arizona State University, other universities, and they have the podcast there of his presentations, and you can listen to them for yourself. And the last one I listened to, one of the students said, I've understood that part of the transhumanist dream could represent an existential risk. That means it could wipe out all life on Earth, and Professor Mellman admits it. He says, yes, the road we're going down could indeed lead to the eradication of all life on Earth, but the genie's out of the bottle. There's no way to put it back in. We're already doing it, and there's no way to stop. This train has already left the building. So it's astonishing what some of these guys have admitted. Okay, now I'm going to have to go a lot faster than that if I'm going to get this done in whatever time I got. But if you're sitting here tonight, and if you find that you're feeling a little bit envious of your Ohio brethren and sisters, yes, I did say cistern, feeling like maybe they're getting the leg up on you a little bit here in North Carolina, no fear. North Carolina is one of the top locations in the world for the creation of genetically modified organisms, genetically modified animals, genetically modified crops. And in fact, some of the test beds and forests that are being raised here, most other states rejected, saying it was far too dangerous. But because I knew that I would be speaking here, I grabbed a couple of them. Here, oh, this don't point on your thing. Okay, here is the Should North Carolina Wildlife Refuges Grow Genetically Modified Crops? Down here, the North Carolina State University, and they're talking about transgenic trees. A transgenic creation is when you take the genetic material from one living species and you genetically engineer it into the genetic material of another living species, something that cannot happen naturally. Now, I don't know about the transgenic forest that they're evidently raising here in North Carolina, but I do know that some transgenic trees have been created that have human enzymes in them. Furthermore, we are raising rice crops in the United States right now that you're going to wind up eating that have human genetic material in them. So that's how far that train also has left the building. Here's also the North Carolina Biotechnology Center, and on their website, they're celebrating right now how this is a $60 billion a year part of the annual economy. North Carolina wants its part of it. That's That's in Durham. Where's that? About 2 hours from here. Here also in Durham is one of the transgenic laboratories. And that page right there is talking about the transgenic mouse part of their laboratory. So if you need to get a mouse that is part human or some other part pig or whatever you might happen to need for your experimental purposes, this is one of the laboratories in the United States where you would be able to go. I'm not picking on North Carolina. I'm not picking on Ohio. The state that I come from, Missouri, we are raising humanized pigs at the University of Missouri, pigs that are part human, and we're doing that for xenotransplantation purposes, which is just something I can't get bogged down in, but it has to do with the hope of being able to transplant organs and make them more readily acceptable to our body systems. But in any case, this is happening in every nation around the world, in every state in the United States of America. Now, you might be thinking, surely, Tom, these have just got to be isolated news stories, right? I mean, when you knew you was going to be presenting here tonight, you went out and you looked real hard and you found 2 or 3 stories to try to prop up your thesis to make it sound like this is more expedient. Folks, to answer my own rhetorical question, I could stand before you tonight, I'm not kidding, for 10 solid hours and still would barely scratch the surface on the peer-reviewed medical journal reports, peer-reviewed science journal reports, line items in budgets like this year's DARPA budget, that last year's budget not only had millions of dollars for creating the blueprint to edit our soldiers' DNA, but it had millions of dollars for biodesign, which is the creation of a new synthetic form of life that will be militarized and it will be immortal. According to DARPA's own budget, I actually photographed that and put it in one of my books. But so we could go on and on. But so that you, very quickly, so that you know I'm not making this up, let's just very quickly look at some of the most recent headlines. This is the front page of the GF 2045 Global Futures website. I picked this because this happened only just a few weeks ago in New York at the Lincoln Center. This was a gathering of the world's top futurists, top scientists, top genetic engineers, philosophers, people like Ray Kurzweil, who came from all over the world. They gathered to convene there, and what did they come there to discuss? Towards a new strategy for human evolution. And they literally are only one of the presenters, if you will, right now. This is happening at Oxford University, Stanford University. All of our leading universities now are hosting what they're calling transhuman conferences. But there's something else here that is even more interesting. Again, go look this website up. It's only 6 weeks old. And see this little button right here? And there's one over here. You can page through the different speakers that presented here in New York a few weeks ago, but I stopped it on these 3. Why? Because this is a spiritual leader talking about science and spirituality. This is a rabbi talking about science and spirituality. This is a pastor talking about science and spirituality. Why? Because among the transhumanist camps, they believe that not only are we going to alter our physiology, and not only are we going to alter our neurology, but that by so doing, we are going to change ourselves spiritually. We are going to create a new form of human that will literally communicate with God in ways that Christianity has never even dreamed of. So they imagine now that humans are spiritual, but it goes so much deeper. Here's the Washington Post. Mice, men, and in between, scientists debate blending of human-animal forms. Here's the New York Times. Merely human? That's so yesterday. Here's Counterpunch. The Pentagon planned to create mutant super soldiers. Here's the Center for Bioethics and Human Dignity on the future of the human species. Here's Discovery News talking about part human, part machine transistors being built. Here's the Danger Room. The Pentagon looks to breed immortal synthetic organisms. That's what I referred to a moment ago. And also want to say something about this one. Top Pentagon scientists fear brain-modified foes. Now, if you could see the date on that, June 9, 2008, and you might wonder why I would choose to include a slide that that is 5 years old with these other newer slides? I do because this slide here has historic importance to me, and that is that it was the first time that the public began to understand that among some of the top scientific advisory panels that give advice to the U.S. Pentagon and the Department of Defense, among them there are those who believe that the human enhancement revolution represents the next arms race. That's how serious they are about it. In other words, in much the same way as the old Soviet Union competed with the United States for the buildup of nuclear arms in what is now called the Cold War, but it was the nuclear arms race. People like the Jasons. Who are the Jasons? It says they are the celebrated scientists on the Pentagon's most prestigious scientific advisory panel, and that's about all you ever will know about them. I have a friend that has above top secret security clearance, and he said, forget it, brother, you'll never know who the Jasons are. But suffice to say, they are among the intelligentsia, and they believe that the United States may already have fallen behind. Now, here's the thing. We don't know what they know. Why would the Jasons be telling the Pentagon last year that you have until the end of this year to get ahead of this technology, or you face falling, their words, unrecoverably behind in the race for human enhancement? Now, what are they talking about? They know something about Russia? Is this China? By the way, Iran has some of the most sophisticated laboratories doing research into this of anybody in the world. That's really scary, right? But what is it that they know we don't know? They also put out a white paper recently, I didn't bring the slide for it, called the $100 Genome, Implications for the Department of Defense. And it's a doozy because in it they talk about genotype and phenotype. And if you remember your basic biology from school, genotype, that's what you inherit from your parents, right? That's your genetic blueprint. That's why you were born a human and not a dog, because of your genotype. But phenotype, that's how it is expressed externally. It's how you walk. It's how you talk. It's why you're bipedal. It's your characteristics. It's your instincts. And the Jasons are saying to the Department of Defense, as we begin modifying people at the genotypic level, we are going to modify them phenotypically. In other words, they're going to walk different. They're going to act different. Their characteristics are going to be different. They may become more animalistic. They could be like something out of a demonic nightmare. And they're saying, you've got to get ahead of this technology, because our enemies, our competitors are developing it at breakneck pace, and in the very near future, according to them, this decade won't elapse before you will see characters you couldn't have imagined. The Jasons are not the only ones urging preparedness for the coming human enhancement revolution. At the School of Law, Birkbeck, the University of London, this is one of the world's leading CSI schools, crime scene investigation, where if you're in law enforcement, you would go there to get degrees to work in CSI. How many of you know what CSI is? Okay. Well, if you've watched any of these TV shows, you know, crime scene investigators, they go into a crime scene, right? They rope it off, they cordon it off. Other officers can't even get in there unless they're specially trained. Then they start photographing everything, and then they start measuring in great detail everything that's there. If there's forensics information, they will put that into special containers. It could be a drop of blood. It could be a drop of sperm. It could be a hair fiber. It could be a footprint. It could be a tire track. If there's a body laying there, it might even be how the body is laying there. Then they collect all this stuff after measuring it so that they can take it back to the crime lab and recreate it, put it in special containers so there's no cross-contamination of the forensic material, and then they recreate it in the crime lab. Well, anyway, so many weeks later, they come out of the crime lab, and now they are able to say to the field investigators something like, we are looking for a Caucasian male between the ages of 25 to 36 years of age. He's got blonde hair. He's probably part of an affluent community, or this or that or whatever, right? It's amazing what 200 years of analytical science have taught them how to read crime scene forensics to be able to come up with this information, and then that becomes a powerful tool in the hand of field investigators. Well, the Birkbeck School of Law put out a press release not long ago, and they said, as we start going down the human enhancement revolution, there will come a time when we're going to have to create new classes for crime scene investigation. Why? Because if we are looking at a crime scene that, let's say, was a violent rape episode, and the man that perpetrated this is part wolf, everything we know about forensics and profiling may have just gone out the window. And folks, that those kind of questions are going to have to be asked sooner than later was actually dramatically illustrated by a professor by the name of Ivan Balaban, who was doing research at the McGill University in Montreal, Canada. And what Balaban did, am I hypnotizing you? What Balaban did was he took the developing brain matter of embryonic quail, and he genetically engineered it into the developing brain matter of embryonic chickens. And when the chickens were born and they began to grow, they started exhibiting the head bobs and the vocal trills of quail. And what his experiment illustrated is that very, very complex behavior patterns can be transferred from one species to another species through genetic engineering. Well, how big, and with this one I'm going to rush to get done, how big might the implications from Professor Balaban's research be? Here is the front cover of the Global Governance 2025 at a Critical Juncture report. This is a report filed not long ago by the United States Office of the Director of National Intelligence, working with the European Institute of Security Studies. So in other words, the top intelligence agencies of the U.S. working with the top intelligence agencies of Europe, and produced this report. Now, what's this report about? This report tries to imagine by 2025, so within 12 years, between now and the next 12 years, what might be a threat that would cause all of the nations of the world to suddenly have to come together in a one world government in mutual defense of one another. What might the scenario be that would suddenly cause all of us to have to rush together to try to protect ourselves from some unprecedented threat? And so they talk about the possibility of suddenly we detect an asteroid, and an asteroid is headed towards the Earth. It's going to be here in 1 year. All of a sudden we need everybody on Earth to come together to try to come up with some kind of a defense. They talk about biological warfare. They talk about the collapse of the global economy. But then on page 35, things get a little bit interesting. Here's what they say. No forum currently exists for dealing comprehensively across the scientific community, industry, and government on measures needed to diminish the risks posed by the biotechnology revolution. In addition, biotechnology can drive new forms of human behavior and association, creating profound cross-cultural ethical questions that will be increasingly politically contentious. Few experts believe that current governance instruments are adequate for these challenges. For example, direct modification of DNA at fertilization is widely researched with a goal of removing defective genes. However, discussions of future capabilities open the possibility for designing humans with unique physical, emotional, and cognitive abilities. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, when the top intelligence agencies of the U.S. got together with the top intelligence agencies of Europe and said, what within the next 12 years could pose an existential threat to all life on Earth, among them they included the emergence of a new form of mankind. And not long ago in California, a whole series of House Foreign Affairs Committee hearings were held. California Democrat Brad Sherman, he was picked, by the way, to chair these HFA hearings because of his known expertise in the spread of weapons of mass destruction among terrorists. But what were these HFA hearings about? A writer for Congressional Quarterly, a writer by the name of Mark Stenzel, attended the HFA hearings, listened to them, then went back, wrote a special report for CQ magazine in which he described listening to the HFA hearings, he said, as sounding more like a pitch for a Hollywood sci-fi movie than it did a sober discussion of scientific reality, with all of its talk of super animals, super intelligence, and superhumans on the near horizon against which mankind is not prepared. All right, with science, government, and occult societies foreseeing the emergence of new forms of humanity for the immediate future, I believe that we could be witnessing the unfolding of biblical prophecy. I don't have time to go through these examples, but the bottom one there is I think this could be a fulfillment of Matthew 24:37, as it was in the days of Noah. Why? This was the day when the watchers came down. All of the ancient ancient records, both biblical and extra-biblical, tell us that they tinkered with the genetics of humanity. They did exactly what we are doing in laboratories all around the world now. They crossed over the species barrier, and ladies and gentlemen, it didn't end very well. I'm going to bypass all of that and go right to this. However, how do I know that we can prevail? Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all of the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you, and we can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth us. You believe that? Thank you for letting me come and present.